This video goes over common mistakes on RIP number 7. The most common way that people did problem 1 was by factoring, and they got -7/2 and -2. That's correct. But another common thing that people did that's incorrect is writing the answers as an ordered pair. You cannot write the answers as an ordered pair because the question is asking us to solve. There is no y variable in the entire problem, so we can't determine what the y values are. So since that's the case, I can't put ordered pairs. When would I possibly put an ordered pair? If the problem was something like y equals 2x squared plus 11x plus 14, find the x-intercepts. That would be a question where we would write this as the answer. But since that's not the question, we cannot write that as the answer. Also notice, just as you look through here, there are no y's. So just be aware of that. What if these were y? I guess another way to put it is if I was finding the intersections of x squared minus 7x and 3x squared plus 4x plus 14, we would get x is -7/2 and x equals -2, but the y values would be different. They wouldn't be zeros. So if we're looking at like what this may represent, it may represent a lot of different things. So we just have to be careful and not automatically assume that we're finding x-intercepts if it doesn't tell us that we are. For problem 2, it's very similar. You cannot write -4,0 and -1,0. That is not what this question is asking for. There are no y variables. The other thing that we have to be aware of is probably the second most common way that I saw people solving this question is by multiplying everything out and going through about 6 or 7 steps in order to multiply everything out, and then factoring. And you get x equals -4 and x equals -1, both of which are correct. There's nothing wrong with the process. It's just a very long process when the problem already has a square root method kind of ready to go. So if you add 19 and divide by 3, you have 2x plus 5 squared equals 9. Then you take the square root of both sides and you get plus or minus 3. That's probably the biggest issue that people had if they solved by the square root method, which I think would be the recommended method in this problem. It's a lot quicker than doing all of the multiplying out. We just have to remember to put the plus or minus 3. Then you subtract 5 and divide by 2. So you have -5 plus or minus 3 over 2. And you should simplify this. You should end up with -4 and -1. So -8 over 2 is -4. -5 plus 3 is -2. Divided by 2 is -1. Problem 3 and 4 both would use the discriminant. So in problem 3, a lot of people were struggling to remember that there's a b squared and recognizing what you put in for a and c. Some people were putting things in incorrectly. The answer is -23 for the first part of the question. So it says find the discriminant. So if you do not give a value, so if you don't give the discriminant is -23, you're not answering this part of the question. Then there's another part of the question. Determine what that means for the number of x-intercepts. You need to say something along these lines. There are 2 non-real solutions. There are 0 real x-intercepts, something that actually answers that part of the question. If you're not answering that part of the question, or the part that I underline in green, then you're not answering some major part of that question. Also notice that we have 3 negatives. Negative times negative times negative is a negative number. Number 4, the easiest way to do this is again with the discriminant. Lots of people were trying to do this with other ways like completing the square and stuff like that. It's possible to do, but it's much harder. If you just use b squared minus 4ac equals 0, that tells you that there's one real 0, one real x-intercept. You can find the value of c pretty easily. The other thing that was an issue is -7 squared is not -49, and that was a common issue that people had. -7 squared is +49. So the answer would be 49 over 16.